Hey, how you doing, everybody? As always, this is JD Lewis with Untamed Conversations. We'll be talking about some WWE, WWF. Big wrestling fan. I'm going to have more people on to talk about wrestling. But right now, I just want to kind of, talk about it in general. Me and my friends growing up, we all watched wrestling. We all watched the pay-per-views. Obviously, you have the Monday Night Wars, which from 1995 to 2001, there was nothing better to watch. You had WWF Raw. Raw is War. It was Monday Night Raw. Raw is War. World Championship Wrestling, obviously WCW's Monday Nitro. And I think the ratings were great, going back and forth. And I know for myself, I would go back and forth and watch both. You have Stone Cold with the WWF, you have the NWO in WCW, Kevin Nash, Scott Hall, Hulk Hogan. That was huge. You can't really get a lot better than that. That was huge. Between Vince McMahon and Ted Turner going at it. Obviously, to me, I think Vince McMahon cared a little bit more about the wrestlers. I think Ted Turner was more of, let me just pay these guys. And that's really it. Ted Turner just gave them contracts, and that's why you saw when WCW eventually went out of business, a lot of these big stars didn't come over to the WWE right away. They didn't have to. They had contracts that were just lingering. Let's put it this way. In a WCW, you had a lot of great wrestlers, which also wrestled in the WWE. You had Jeff Jarrett in the WCW. You had Juventud Guerrera. Let's not forget when Dennis Rodman came to WCW. It was him and Hollywood Hogan with Diamond Dallas Page against Karl Malone. So it was a tag team match. That was insane. You had some old school wrestlers, which were also great announcers, like Larry Zbyszko, who everybody knows he was quite an announcer. Always just full of fun, full of life. Just full of some bullshit, I guess you can say. I loved them both, but I thought WCW was so much better at one point. You had a lot of guys that, let's see, you had one guy in particular who he always I was very fond of him. He was in ECW, he was in WCW, and obviously when he came over to WWE, he kind of got shit on, and they made quick work of him. But Perry Saturn, or as he changed his name, Saturn, I think he was great. You look at all the old school wrestlers, and I think they were a lot of fun. Animal and Hawk, the Road Warriors, they were great. The Nation of Domination with Farouk, The Rock, D'Lo Brown, Mark Henry, The Godfather, or Kama at the time, I'm sorry. You look at some of the older guys that right before the Attitude Era, like a lot of people like to talk about how Bret Hart sort of kicked off the Attitude Era with Stone Cold. I don't necessarily agree with that. Do I agree that Bret Hart helped push Stone Cold? 100%. Absolutely. I think that's a no fucking brainer, and Stone Cold still says that to this day. I think, you look at some of the Hell in the Cells, Mick Foley, The Undertaker. Foley falling off the cell. That was just insane. Going through the cell, landing on his back. That was nuts, You look at some of these families that are dynasties, like the Rhodes, obviously, Cody Rhodes, Dusty Rhodes, and obviously he played his character as Goldust, but you had those three, it's wrestling is a lot of fun to me. Obviously everybody says it's fake. Anybody who doesn't watch wrestling, they do say it's fake. And listen, there's a big difference. It's scripted. It's not fake. Falling 50 feet off a ladder through a table is not fake. It's scripted, and you have to pray to God that you don't kill yourself. Just a perfect example. I was watching Sting's last match last week, AEW, which was amazing, by the way. And Darby Allin jumped off a ladder through a glass plant, like 2 glass pieces. And obviously he landed a little sideways. He wasn't supposed to land that way because he ended up getting 100 and something stitches in his back. So when you talk about being scripted and being fake, 2 different things. And, I will argue till the day I die about that with someone, But I think there's a lot of interesting WWE, WCW storylines. One that's, I guess you can say, a little depressing. Let's talk about Chris Benoit. He was a great wrestler in WCW. He was a great wrestler in WWE. They gave him a good push, and he ended up, allegedly, still nobody to this day knows what happened. They found him dead in his house. His 2 kids were killed, and his wife. So all 4 of them had passed away. There's still rumors to this day that there's certain exes of his wife who had something to do with it. He was also a wrestler. I'll just give the initials KS instead of saying the full name. You never know who's listening. LOL. But that's a terrible story. He was an amazing wrestler, and it was insane. I think when people die in the wrestling family, it drives people nuts. Eddie Guerrero died, and I think that just threw everybody else off, and it threw everybody into a downward spiral. You look at Owen Hart again. When everybody says it's fake, it's entertainment. Yes, it's not fake. He fell from the rafters coming down on a I forgot what it, coming down from the rafters. He was hanging down, and the bungee snapped, and he hit the ring and died immediately. So look at all the Hart family and tell them that that's fake. Absolutely not. But speaking of, like I was saying, kind of the clicks, you had the Hart Foundation. Bret Hart, Owen Hart, British Bulldog, Jim the Anvil Neidhart, which he was always one of my favorites because I feel like we kind of look alike, me and the Anvil. I think that that was a great click back in the day. And obviously we can't forget DX, D-Generation X, Triple H, Shawn Michaels, Road Dogg, Billy Gunn, X-Pac. Rest in peace to Chyna. To this day, who I still think was a phenomenal wrestler. What was the ninth wonder of the world they called her? I mean, she was amazing. Unfortunately, she had some issues, and it got the best of her, but I'll never forget her, and I love watching her wrestling matches still to this day. I think she was great, and I think she paved the way for, Becky Lynch, Rhea Ripley, Bianca Belair. It all started with Chyna. So rest in peace to her. So, kind of just going back and forth, like I said, and talking about different people in the industry. Going way back, let's talk about Michael Hayes, who was an amazing wrestler. He was with the Fabulous Freebirds, who he is still part of the WWE to this day, still part of creative. He's still helping these young guys. I mean, that's somebody that is just a lifer. He was born to do it, and I think he's going to die doing it. He's going to die in that ring or somewhere close to the WWE headquarters because this is what he likes to do. And that's huge. There is a new movie out I saw about the Von Erichs, which I absolutely want to watch, with Zac Efron, and that's another story that's just terrible. That family was destroyed. It's awful. What happened to him, his brothers, and everybody. It's just, that is a family with somebody whose father pushed them to the limit, and unfortunately it did not turn out well, But kind of changing pace. Let's look at some wrestlers that didn't have necessarily family or bloodline, and they had to really bust their ass to get there. One of my favorites, Mick Foley, Cactus Jack, Dude Love, Chainsaw Charlie. That was him and Terry Funk. Terry Funk and him were partners. Chainsaw Charlie was a great character. And obviously Mankind had Cactus Jack, Dude Love, and Mick Foley. So, it was an interesting time watching Mick Foley come up, because I know a lot of people didn't like him. They didn't think he would be anything. Even Vince said it himself in a couple documentaries. They said he wouldn't amount to anything. And then they figured out this Mankind thing, and him and The Undertaker just went crazy. They just turned it into, an amazing segment, an amazing match. And then you look where Mick Foley went. He ended up winning the World Championship belt. He ended up tag teaming with The Rock and Sock Connection, So, it's stories like that make me like wrestling as well, where you look at people that maybe you didn't think they would have made it, and they got a chance. And that's huge. ECW helped with that. WCW, WWE, they all helped. So, maybe some people don't like each other, but at the end of the day, every one of those federations, every one of those organizations brought people together. One of my favorites back in the day, he was part of the NWO. I think the NWO got too big, too fast. It turned into a shit show. But Buff Bagwell, he was amazing. And, you saw his downfall and the story of him. And if anybody's familiar with DDP Yoga, Diamond Dallas Page is getting him healthy again. DDP did that for a lot of wrestlers, including, Scott Hall. Rest in peace to another great one, but he got him sober. He helped him get sober. He turned him into a better person. Unfortunately, he did pass away, but a lot of these guys from back in the day, everything took a toll on them. Drugs, alcohol, painkillers. It was just one after another, because they had to do it 364 days a year. That schedule was insane. And it just, to me, I always thought I wanted to be a wrestler, and people would say, you should try out for WWE, blah, blah, blah. That's insane. I could never do that. But it's funny, I'm just thinking about some of the pay-per-views I used to watch with WWE and WCW. But this is one in particular because I watched it at my grandparents' house across the street. They used to order all the pay-per-views for me if my parents didn't. And it was the Great American Bash. And I believe it was when Rey Mysterio made his debut. I think that was 1996, 97. I believe it was 96. And it was insane. It was Rey Mysterio versus Dean Malenko. And it was one of the coolest matches I've ever seen. And I was always like, man, I would love to be a cruiserweight, and then realized I was too big, too heavy, and too strong. But it was cool. That was one of the first pay-per-views I remember watching. And it just, it was great watching it at my grandparents'. It was great seeing these wrestlers fly around doing flips, all this stuff. And it was really cool to see. There's, like I said, there's a lot of wrestlers that have died overdosing, drugs, alcohol. And there's a list of them. You look at Brian Pillman, who was one of Stone Cold's best friends, but also his adversary. They were going to have great matches, but unfortunately Brian Pillman passed away. And, Brian Pillman's son is wrestling right now, which is really cool. He's trying to bring his dad's legacy back, and that's really awesome to see. Again, like I said before, some of these guys that have passed away, you have Eddie Guerrero. Unfortunately, another one who it was never really proven what happened. It could have been, they said maybe a heart attack. They said a few different things, but who knows? And that was another hard one because I loved him as a wrestler. But you look at the old school wrestling, and you come now to what's going on now. You have the Bloodline, and you have all these different groups, and Judgment Day, and this and that. And to me, it's cool to watch wrestling now. I'm really intrigued with the Cody Rhodes story, and hopefully he ends his story, because I think if he doesn't, I don't know where else to go with him. What do you do? Is it cool that they brought The Rock back? I thought that was great. He's a star, obviously. He's always going to be a star. Everybody loves him. No matter what, everybody is always going to love The Rock. He leaves forever. He comes back. Nobody cares. He's The Rock, and he'll always be the people's champ. And I think it's cool, seeing him, acknowledge Roman Reigns and the Bloodline and whatnot. In my mind, I think he's going to turn on Roman Reigns and take over the Bloodline. Let's all not forget, back in the 90s, the Nation of Domination. The Rock got everybody to turn on Farouk, and The Rock took over the Nation of Domination. So I think you have to be prepared for that. I think that it's something where you don't know what's really going to happen. I think, me being such a big wrestling fan, in my mind, I kind of know what's going to happen. But maybe it doesn't. But I would love to see The Rock turn on everybody and maybe help everybody. Maybe help Cody Rhodes, and maybe, the hell with all of them. Also you're going to have, let's see, the lineup for WrestleMania. You're going to have Seth Rollins and Drew McIntyre, which I think will be really cool. Obviously, CM Punk was supposed to be part of that, but he got hurt, so they weren't expecting that. But that's going to be a huge match. I think that's pretty cool. Becky Lynch and Rhea Ripley. I mean, that's awesome. Women's wrestling has come so far in the last 10 years. It's just amazing to watch. I think it's a lot of fun. And it's just as competitive as the men's wrestling, and I would watch that all day. I definitely think WrestleMania is going to be pretty cool. It's going to be a good setup. You have the Usos against each other, Jay and Jimmy, which is another huge one. And I like this, when they have family go against each other, whether you're brothers, whether you're cousins, whether you're sisters, whatever. I like seeing that. I like seeing the family go against each other. Logan Paul versus Randy Orton. That's an interesting one that I think everybody's looking forward to seeing. Obviously, everybody has their thoughts and whatnot again about Logan Paul. At first, I didn't like him in the WWE. I don't have an issue. He's proven himself. He's a badass flyer. He's a good wrestler, and I think that he deserves to be there now. Do I think he's going to beat Randy Orton? I do. I think in terms of people who don't watch wrestling and don't know the lingo, I think Randy Orton's going to put him over, meaning he's going to let him win to let him get a bigger spot. That's what a lot of the veterans do for the younger guys. I think that's going to be a good match. LA Knight, AJ Styles, that's going to be another one. I mean, I still feel like they're both in their prime. Yeah, LA Knight's a little older. LA Knight reminds me of like a DDP. You got big at, I don't want to say the wrong time, but you got big when you were a little bit older. And I think that that's going to be a great match. But I also think that AJ Styles is going to put LA Knight over. I think it's LA Knight's turn. Get something going. I think that's going to be a great match. Gunther versus Sami Zayn is going to be huge. Let's all not forget, it was supposed to be, and I think we all know this, Brock Lesnar and Gunther. And also, let's not forget, Brock Lesnar just looks like he got cleared to be back on the roster. So who knows what happens at WrestleMania? Maybe Brock Lesnar comes back. Maybe he has something to do with it. Maybe he interferes. I mean, there is 50 different scenarios, and nobody knows what's going to go on. Obviously, you have Cody Rhodes and Seth Rollins versus The Rock and Roman Reigns day one for the tag match. That'll be interesting. But then day two, night two, Roman Reigns versus Cody Rhodes for the championship. Again, like I said, I see The Rock turning on Roman night 1, and then night 2 he's all by himself to face Cody Rhodes, and I think that's where Cody's story ends and he wins. Again, I just wanted to kind of shoot out a small briefing about wrestling for anybody that's going to listen that does like wrestling, and if they don't like wrestling, no big deal. But I wanted to put it out there. I wanted everybody to hear it, and those are my predictions for WrestleMania. And obviously, we still have, I believe, 3-4 weeks, probably 3 weeks before WrestleMania, but that's what I think. And of course, I can't leave you without telling you who my favorite wrestler is of all time. Stone Cold Steve Austin. Hell yeah. I don't think you can go wrong. I've been following Stone Cold's social media, and it looks to me like he's in the best shape of his life. So maybe Stone Cold makes a comeback again. You know, he wrestled KO, Kevin Owens, at a previous WrestleMania, so maybe he comes back and saves somebody's life. But listen, everybody, like I said, this is more of a shorter podcast. I just wanted to talk about wrestling a little bit. Bring up who I like, the old school wrestling, some of the deaths in wrestling, the family factions and whatnot. This is only the beginning of talking about wrestling because we're going to have some people on and really get crazy. So as always, this is JD Lewis with Untamed Conversations. Ever feel run down, get bad migraines, or get sick often? Maybe you drank too much the night before and can't get out of bed. Want to add some extra vitamins into your life to help your skin and metabolism? Well, I know exactly how to fix that. Get Your Drip On is a mobile IV clinic run by a registered nurse in New Haven, Connecticut area. She will come to your house and literally hook you up. Talk about convenience. She will hook you up with the fluids you need to give yourself that extra kick. Get Your Drip On offers IV fluid bags of immunity boosting, energy, weight loss, hangover cure, skin repair, performance, and recovery. Call Get Your Drip On at 475-209-3409 or message on Instagram at Get Your Drip On to book an appointment now.